Hey everyone, so today we have a manga review of horror and horror adjacent series because it is the spooky month of October. So tomorrow is Halloween. I'm hoping I'll get this out on Halloween Day. Unfortunately, I wanted to get it out a little sooner, but a lot of things going on at my job and in my life, and plus, this is a freaking massive stack of books, so it took quite a while for me to get through all of them. But I hope you enjoy it, and let me tell you, I was thoroughly spooked. Alright, let's go ahead and check some of these series out. Alright, so the first book we have is the manga for Another. So this was a very popular novel, and which also got adapted into an anime as well. But the manga here is the first and only I've consumed so far, and honestly, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I thought it would be more campy and like teenage oriented than it was. It definitely still was, don't get me wrong, but it turned out to be very heavy on the mystery and the gore, and the kind of horror scenes really stood out in this for me. So the story is about a city boy who is transferring to a school out in the country, and because of some health concerns, he ends up being a week or a couple weeks late to joining his classmates at the start of the semester. And when he gets there, things seem to be quite off. There's like this mysterious, almost ghostly girl that is walking around, and everyone else seems to be ignoring her. So he's like, what's going on? Why is everyone acting so weird? Why are people telling me not to look into things I shouldn't be looking into? But his curiosity gets the better of him, and that's really where the story starts to unravel. There were a couple scenes in here that I thought the art was actually absolutely amazing. Overall, the art was pretty good, but they do a really good job of like painting shadows and utilizing darkness to build the suspense of sequences. So here's just another picture of that. I'd probably give this around a 7.6 out of 10, something around there. I thought it was really good, but there were definitely some sequences that I thought were a bit too much or over dramatic, and a couple things there's maybe like a little cheesy or silly, just a bit. So, but overall though, I thought it was really good, and I thoroughly enjoyed this start to finish. So next we have one that's maybe not so much of a horror, but is definitely a mystery, and that is Bakemonogatari. So I've read the first two novels of this. I started this well before October, though, because I'm a very slow reader, and I definitely would not have been able to finish all this in 1 month. But I made it about halfway through book 3 by now, so I'm still making my way through it. And so far, I am very impressed by this series. I'm not surprised by that at all, but the mystery, the way things build up is just absolutely awesome. So it's about a boy who briefly became a vampire, and he was quickly turned into a human again. However, he kind of brought some of those like monster powers almost with him. I don't know quite how to explain it, but he has like super healing still and stuff like that. But because he was introduced to this monster realm, I guess, to this world of monsters, then he starts to see them a lot more frequently from here on out. So each book is split into 2 sections where it follows 2 different characters. So in this case, the 2 on the cover of the book. Same thing with volume 2. And each character has their own kind of like monster sequence, and it ends up being this sort of mystery of how do you save this person who is being like followed or possessed or whatever by this monster. And the way the way the author does it is honestly really cool in my opinion, because he kind of like leads you off the trail for a bit, but he gives these like subtle hints at the same time, where if you're like really on your toes, or like folklore and stuff like that, then you might be able to figure it out. But for someone like me, I would have like absolutely no idea. And when the surprise comes, it is actually really cool and very rewarding to read. So thoroughly enjoying this. I'm definitely going to continue with this series. I have the entirety of the first 2 box sets of the novel. So very excited to continue. Liking it so far. The only thing I wish it didn't have as much of is sometimes they get kind of like a little over sexualized with like jokes and like comments. It's nothing like really bad or anything, but it's one of those like anime doing anime things. So not the worst in the world. It's kind of what you would expect from like a like shonen range story like this, but without that, it would be just absolutely golden. And personally, I could live with it, but some people might be a little turned off by it. But yeah, I liked it more than another so far, and definitely looking forward to read more of this. All right, so next we have The Summer Hikaru Died. So this came out fairly recently. I think the second volume is still in pre-order, or at least getting out of pre-order soon. But so I read this just a couple weeks ago, and I thought it was really good. Honestly, I expected it to be pretty good, but it does a great job of painting the picture of what happens if your friend is killed by this monster and then possessed by the monster, right? And then, but the monster is now holding the memories of your friend, and the personality too is like almost acting the exact same, kind of like Among Us, honestly. But it kind of brings up a lot of interesting questions of like, how would you feel as a main character if that were to happen to you? Like, you would probably most definitely be disturbed, but at the same time, you like see your friend in this monster, and you hear things that supposedly, like memories the monster has inherited from your friend, you might be hearing for the first time, and because of that, it's like really mentally overwhelming, and you don't really know how to act in some of these scenes, because you're like, like I really care about my friend, and in this case, I think there's a big there's even like that a romantic layer on top of it too. So that like added bonus just makes it even more powerful and impactful for the main character. So overall, the story is really cool. I don't know if I explained it well enough, but definitely check it out. The artwork I thought is actually great. Like I could show a little scene here. I thought it was very well drawn, and like with Another, they do a very good job of handling darkness as well. Maybe in a slightly different way, but it's really good, and especially painting the main character and the struggles that he's going through. Just absolutely amazing. So I really enjoyed this. So I'm not sure if I'm going to keep buying it just yet, because it wasn't my favorite series that I read this month, but I definitely really enjoyed it, and I want to keep reading it, but I just feel like now is not the time, especially because of how slow the series is coming out. I want to read like more, kind of like bunch them all together so I don't just get one volume at a time. So anyway, so that's this one. Moving on. All right, so the next one is a short 3-book series, and I apologize if I mispronounce this one. It is Eniale Dewiela. So it is made by the same mangaka who did Witch Hat, which, if you can see, is actually right behind me on this poster. So I absolutely love that series. It's probably one of my favorite mangas. So I was really excited to check this out. but I was surprised. It goes in a very different direction. Unlike Witch Hat, this is much more adult focused. So it's about an angel and a demon who are, I guess, I don't know if they're living together per se, but they're like always hanging around each other, and they kind of hate each other, but they kind of need each other in a way, or always want to spend time together. And each chapter kind of paints a different scene that they're put in, where it kind of actually reminds me of like one of those like old sitcoms like Seinfeld or something like that, where like every single episode they're actively making the world a worse place. And I think that's the absolutely hilarious part about this short series, is that everything they do, they end up messing it up somehow. And the comedy actually hits really well. I think that was like the highlight of this. So really cool so far. I've only read the first of the 3, so I guess my scope isn't that great yet, but so far it seems to be very like episodic, where each chapter is truly just a different scenario. But so far, I think it's absolutely great. The two characters like blend together really well, like their personalities and everything. And the artwork in this is, like, no surprise, absolutely fantastic. Because I love the artwork of this mangaka. It's probably like one of my favorites to read. So, yeah, really cool overall, and I'm definitely excited to continue this. I'm probably gonna do it soon, just because it's only like 2 more volumes. So yeah, pretty cool overall. Would definitely recommend if you like Witch Hat. So cool. So next one, we're going to be doing a bit of a left turn here into a very much more disturbing territory, and that is for Blood on the Tracks. So a lot of people I hear recommend reading this in the month of October, and I could definitely see why. It is a honestly very chilling and suspenseful series. So the main thing in the series is the relationship between the mother and her son. She has a very possessive like relationship with him, where at first I thought it was more like she really cared about him and wanted to make sure he was safe and things like that. But as it went on, the more I realized that I think she just like wants to feel like he's her possession, if that makes sense. And to be honest, she's kind of showing these like sociopathic like tendencies throughout the series. So I think that is really what it ends up getting built around. And the kid has a really hard time coping with it, or like knowing what to do. A lot of times he just defaults to whatever his mom wants him to do. So psychologically, this series is very interesting so far. And I think I've said this quite a few times already this video, but the artwork in this book is truly magnificent. Just like look at the composition of some of these scenes here, right? So you could just like feel the suspense building in each frame, and I just think it's absolutely awesome. Just the shadows they do on the faces and things like that. He does a really good job of like building suspense where there's seemingly nothing going on at all. But what it ends up doing is foreshadowing to a much greater event that happens, which I happen to just flip into, greater event that happens at the end of book 1. And then things just kind of like snowball after that going into the other 2 books. So is a very cool series. I'm really looking forward to how it continues. I'm definitely going to continue reading this. I think I have the next, was it like 12 volumes, I think, at least. So I'm definitely very committed to this. All right, so that said, let's move on to the next one. So here we have Happiness, another manga by Shuzo Oshimi. Is an interestingly a vampire story. So I only just bought this a couple days ago, and I read it. I just finished it today, actually. Was considering bringing it into work until I realized probably not a good idea considering who wrote this. That said, it wasn't all that bad. It was actually pretty tame for like considering most of his works. I really enjoyed it, but I will say it sucks in a couple ways, and it's probably not the way that you're thinking. There's yeah, it definitely is something else. I'll put it that way. The way that let's just say he's the best at making a story like this, which has like characters that are perverted vampires. Can I say that? I don't know. but that's kind of how I saw this. And what ends up happening is the main character gets attacked in the middle of the night by this vampire girl, and mild spoilers ahead. So if you don't want to hear this, you might want to skip like a minute or so. But what ends up happening is he decides, instead of dying, he decides to become a vampire, right? So that's really where this story kicks off. And the part that I just like, I see this book in two different ways, right? It's like one way is it's very serious and traumatizing for him, because his entire world has shifted, and he doesn't really even know who he is anymore, because these urges are making him into a different person, right? So you have that like classic psychoanalytical storytelling that he's doing, and that he does with most of his books. But then the other side is like, I find just wildly humorous in a way. I don't know if that's like a normal perception of this, but whenever he has this like perversion, right? Whenever he like sees like a girl a certain way or something like that, then that's when his vampire like tendencies start to kick in. That's when he starts to crave like blood, I guess, in this scenario. So I'm like, what's really happening here? It's just wild. It's absolutely wild. It's insane. But that is part of the reason why I love this so much. So once again, a great hitter from Oshimi. In my opinion, compared to Blood on the Tracks, this one made me want to turn pages more. But I think that was just because it's like very shocking. It's very fast paced. It has that humorous side to it. So that just kind of pulled me in a little bit more. So really interested in buying more of this. I'm probably going to hold off for now because I do want to prioritize Blood on the Tracks first. But I almost definitely will end up buying more of these. Cool. All right, so the next one is a reread for me, and that is Uzumaki by Junji Ito. So this is a very, very famous horror spooky time book. But I guess to my surprise, in a way, I didn't like it as much as I felt like I should have. So again, like I said, this was the second time I read through this. The first time I was disappointed. The first like several chapters, I think until the cremation chapter. So I think it's like chapter 3 or 4 or something like that. Up to that point, I was like, this is awesome. I want to keep reading this, like binge this stuff. But then it kind of fell off, in my opinion. The story decided to just like become very episodic. It's like all built around spirals, right? Like spirals in different ways, like terrorizing this town. And it got to the point where it was just like one spiral after another, just like done a different way. And a lot of the ways were like really weird. Like some of them were honestly like really good job doing the horrifying piece. There's like a lot of, Junji Ito excels in body horror, right? So that is the those are definitely the highlights, is the art. And I feel like nearing the end of this book, he tried to like piece together some sort of a reason for everything happening. And I do appreciate that, but I just felt like it was too late. Like once things really started kicking off and like chaos, and then everything just started spiraling down to one, to one thing, one cause. That's what I thought was interesting. But there's just so much of the book in between that was just like not there. I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, like I said, the artwork is amazing. So I guess I'll show like this one scene. It doesn't really give too much away, but you just see how like intricate, how detailed it is. So I'll give it that. It has some of the best imagery that I've seen. But overall, though, wasn't that impressed. But I'll continue to read some more of his books. Maybe I'll change my mind with them in the future. But for now, that is how I feel about it. So, okay. So on that note, we actually have one that truthfully very much spooked me. And that is PTSD Radio. Yeah, it was honestly, it was very spooky, but I don't know, it was a weird read. It was a very, very weird read. I mean, Junji Ito is a weird read, but this was like also episodic and also had just like a bunch of horrifying short stories. But the further you go in, the more you realize that they start to produce this like cohesive like storyline, right? It's like the story was there all along, and the more it builds, the more it kind of comes together. And that's what I think is really cool about this. So this is a two-part, like there's volumes 1 and 2 in this one. And just in this one book, it didn't really resolve very much of anything. It just kind of hinted at stuff. It just kind of started to piece some of the puzzles together. But I thought that was cool, and I definitely see that as becoming a progression as the series like goes forth. So definitely interested to seeing how this turns out. That said, the scenery in this is probably more horrifying than Junji Ito. I mean, it's a little different, right? Because Junji Ito is very good at doing just like still body horror imagery. This one maybe not as much. However, it does the pacing very well. So like maybe I'll just share this one image. So like, here there are some kids walking, and then like they see something, they like see something all of a sudden, and then you turn the page, and then there's like this shadow behind them, right? So like they don't know where that came from. There's just some like lurking shadow, and I think those kind of page turns and how that plays out really plays a role in the horror aspect in this book. So that was one of the highlights to me. I don't really have much more to say about it other than just happy how things ended up, like going from episodic to being a little bit more structured, or not so much structured. I mean, it's still very fragmented, but just linking of everything. So, okay, so pretty cool. Interested in continuing reading this. I think the second one came out recently, so I'll probably pick that up soon. Cool. All right. And the best for last, at least in my opinion, or nearly best. I mean, I've read a lot of great books in this journey, but this one is Homunculus. And let me tell you, this was absolutely amazing. I'm only halfway through. This was actually, besides Happiness, this was the last one that I had on my reading list. Happiness was a bit of a like last minute surprise, I guess. because I saw it on sale and I wanted to get it. But this one was going to be the last one, so that's why I haven't quite finished it yet. But I was actually blown away. I mean, I went into this expecting it to be very good, and then it exceeded my expectations. So let me give like a quick summary. So it's about this guy who seems to be recently made homeless. He lives next to this park, or he lives in this car between a very upscale hotel and this like park full of homeless guys. You're not really quite sure how long he's been homeless, if this has been a recent thing or whatever. So there's like definitely some backstory mystery. But one day he ends up like losing his car gets like towed away when he's away from it. And at that moment, this new character kind of comes into the scene, where he offers to like, can you be a part of this experimental like scientific procedure, where they drill a hole in the front of his head, and so the like goal of the procedure is to see how he would react, because the saying goes, if you have a hole drilled into your skull, like it doesn't go to the brain, but if you have a hole drilled into your skull, then it like releases pressure and it opens your sixth sense. And that is really what this whole story is built around, is like he has this procedure done to kind of like to seize his life back, more or less, to like benefit from the money he's going to be gaining, right? But as a result, he gets pulled into this like crazy situation of like, is he going to start seeing ghosts, or like is he going to start seeing the world in a wildly different way? But the pacing of this is just so good. I mean, like all of this stuff is drawn out in a way where like you just see his life and what he has to live like, what it's like to be homeless even, and kind of like the things you have to live to survive through, taking it one step at a time, seeing this guy's life through his eyes. Really interesting. It's like a truly unique perspective, and the things that happen to him are kind of like horrifying but also very interesting. And the mystery, continues to build and things like that. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of the storyline. I really enjoy that style of thing. Like I enjoy having the mystery. I enjoy having the, seeing the world through his eyes, the seriousness of it, the reality of it, the like politics even somewhat that go into it, like classism and things like that. Really, really interesting. Interested to see how the rest goes. Actually, because of that, I went ahead and got the next volume. Yeah, here you go. So I got the next volume. Just bought this the same time I bought Happiness, actually. So very interested in continuing this series. And I don't know how many there are. I mean, they're pretty meaty volumes. Something tells me there's like 12, so this is 1 through 4, so we're about a third of the way in probably. So a pretty good size series, but absolutely fantastic, and definitely going to continue that. Okay, all right, so that is all for my spooky horror manga review. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm probably, like, I really want to do more manga reviews, probably smaller ones, because this was this 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This was like a 9 series review, so quite hefty. But I really enjoy doing this, and I hope you all did too. Definitely leave a like and subscribe on the channel, and I hope to see you again in the next video. All right, cool. Thanks, everyone. Bye.